Well, I'm driving around after work again. It's about 9:15 in the morning. I'm driving down right now, probably my favorite street. I've never lived on it or anything, but when I want to just drive down a street for fun, this is the street I drive down. And it's a fire street in Montville, if you're curious. A lot of twists and turns, and I don't drive it like really fast or anything. I just kind of like, looping around in it. But so yeah, work went okay. I have to come up with this idea for a teaching project sometime during this 8-week class, and not really sure what I'm going to do it on yet. It can be like any group of people, any audience. It can be about any health-related topic or whatever. And I thought it would be fun to do something with my hospice job, but when it comes to like verifying or like a return demonstration or recording it somehow or giving somebody a test, doesn't really seem like things you can do on the job. But I don't know, maybe I can like go to a nursing home and like teach a pain management in service or something. I know some of the nurses go out to nursing homes and do that. Maybe I can do something like that. I've been using a different kind of cavity drainage system lately. I'm so used to I'm sure some of you have heard of this, it's called a Pleurex drain. They use it for pleural or peritoneal drainage, and there's a particular type, that I've been used to seeing from doing it, and it looks like one of the hospitals in the area is using a different type now, and it's called ASEPT, A-S-E-P-T, or something like that, instead of the Pleurex. And so I'd never seen one before, and I mean, it's the same basic idea with a couple of key improvements that I really like. The first one is that the tube that's actually attached to the patient does not have a removable cap. And instead it's kind of like a Luer lock system, like something you'd see in an IV. And then the vacuum bottle that it comes with, instead of having to push the top of the bottle down to uncrack the vacuum, all you have to do is just slide out this really, really big diesel like sliding clamp, like an emergency tubing clamp, or just like an occlusion clamp. And you hook it up exactly the same way, and then you unseal the vacuum, you do the drainage exactly the same way, and you put the bandage on exactly the same way. It's just there's no cap on the end of the tubing that you have to replace. You just wipe it off with the included alcohol pads. After checking to make sure that these are not the alcohol pads that were contaminated and you're not supposed to use. These have been popping up all over the place. I mean, they mostly got rid of them all now, but this was months and months ago I started seeing this, where there'd be these notice on these alcohol wipes, and it would say, "Do not use these alcohol wipes." They might not be safe to use. So you gotta know that in advance and bring extra alcohol wipes with you. Apparently, from what I heard, what happened was the ultraviolet radiation system that they used to sterilize the alcohol prep pads was not its quality control wasn't documented somewhere where it should have been or something, so they had to do it as a safety precaution. Yeah, I saw them in Pleurex drain kits, I saw them on Foley cath insertion kits. That was the first place I saw them, actually. But just the ones that they put into the kits, never the ones themselves. Maybe we just go through them too fast. They grabbed them all. But yeah. So that was my new thing for the weekend. Checking out the ASEPT drains. Every once in a while, get to do or see something different or learn a new procedure or whatever. It's kind of cool. I mean, conceivably, every time you encounter somebody, you could be picking up something completely different or unique, especially with their chemotherapy agents and stuff. There's so many of them now. Yeah, I remember learning how to manage CAD pumps was a lot of fun. That's kind of a fun thing to do with your hands. It's like a thing that you set up and comes all pre-programmed. You don't have to do anything fancy for it, but knowing how to manage it, knowing what kind of pitfalls to look out for, and things like that is it's interesting to pick up new things like that. There's so many of them. I could just I could spend every day learning a new one and never come close to learning all of them. I think it's one of the main reasons I'd like to work in a hospital, just because, I don't know, it seems like there's so much stuff going on, and I thought it was really exciting when I was a student. I mean, as soon as I stepped on a med-surg floor, I totally loved it. I knew this was for me. And I was surprised when I read later that med-surg nursing is where the most turnover and the most burnout exist. I read this years ago, so maybe this isn't still true. But I was surprised to read that because, well, yeah, I mean, it seems kind of hectic, and the caseloads were pretty heavy, but it seemed really exciting to me. There's a lot going on, and with only having 8 or 6 people to worry about instead of 40, I feel like I could really it would be like an interesting balance between just worrying about one person and worrying about 40, like just having a smaller number of people that are supposedly like more ill, but the more people that I've met who've gone back and forth between nursing homes and home care and hospitals, it seems like the acuity in all of them is like pretty high and potentially similar. I think it's a common misperception among my peers that, I mean, with the exception obviously of the ICU and the operating room and the ED and stuff, just like the general med-surg units, I think it's a misperception that they're on the whole generally sicker than our nursing home or our home care patients. And some of them need, particular types of procedures done that you can only do in the hospital, and that's fair enough. I mean, obviously you're not going to, like, pull up to somebody's house with a portable dialysis machine. I don't think, maybe someday, maybe we're getting closer to that kind of thing, but I don't think it's the norm around where I'm currently practicing. Correct me if I'm wrong. But tons of other stuff. I mean, x-rays and IVs. IVs are a little harder to do because Medicare doesn't pay for it, but you can still make it work. And, well, there's all sorts of stuff you can do in the home now or in the nursing home. It's just not as, often, to do it all the time. I remember, I think it was probably 6 months into my first job as an RN before I managed my first IV line, and I had to go to like some pharmacy IV class before they let me do that, and it was kind of a waste of time. I mean, I can see why they needed the refresher, but I think I did something like probably pretty foolish during the class. The instructor, who was an experienced nurse, she did like IV therapy for critical care, something like pretty hardcore like that, and she was talking about different properties of fluids, and she referred to something as viscous that I thought the fluid that she was describing was thin. It wasn't a viscous fluid. So I stopped her and I said, wait a second, by viscous do you mean the liquid is like thick or sticky or something? And she said, no, I mean it's like thin and runny. And I told her, well, I hate to correct you, but viscous does not mean thin and runny. It means thick. And she looked around the room, and maybe I could have said it nicer too. I might be overstating how nicely I said it. But she looked around the room, and all of her students just silently nodded at her. She's like, oh. That was like the highlight of the class for me. And the rest of the stuff was like, I don't know. I mean, it was stuff that I was definitely expected to know about, like how to prevent infections. I mean, I learned about all this stuff as part of training for my license. I would expect people who pass the NCLEX do know these things about simple principles of asepsis and stuff like that. But I can see why the pharmacy would require people to take that class after seeing some of the mistakes that got made. The classes I actually really enjoyed. That was the only actual class that employer ever sent me to, and I really liked the sort of like the non-work, like the non-work related company of other registered nurses and LPNs. That was not part of, like, we're not like dependent on each other for our jobs, or we're not like in school together or anything. It's just a class. It's like a social event. They have like cookies and coffee, and they have all sorts of goodies and stuff, and usually it was like really interesting. I would have gone to more of them if they'd arranged for them. I guess I gotta look for that stuff on my own. I'm pretty sure somebody told me that at some point during my academic schooling. One of my coworkers was talking about like a critical care symposium or something that goes on at the casino. I gotta remember to look that up. I think it's around this time of year. she said it didn't cost much to get in, and there was a ton of interesting lectures from people who knew what they were talking about, and maybe something to do, you know, go out to the casino, get lunch, and go to a symposium or something. I kind of miss traveling out of state for nursing conventions, but I'm sure there's plenty of stuff I can do around here too. Yeah, but those NSNA conventions, man, those were a blast. Definitely go check those out if you're a nursing student right now. And if your school doesn't have an SNA chapter, just start one and be the president of it. It's fine. But the talks there were a lot more interesting than some of the professional nursing some of the professional nursing association conventions, I guess is the phrase that I'm looking for here. The people were just more like enthusiastic, I guess. I don't know. And it's a big Army recruiting drive, so they dump a bunch of money into it, obviously, but the organization is really interesting, and that was the first time I got to participate in, writing a resolution and getting it passed, and the politics involved in that, and that was very interesting. And the parliamentary, procedure and process stuff, it was all new to me, but they give you a copy of Robert's Rules of Order before you start. It's not that long, and if you really understand how that system of order works, you can really do some interesting things. Like one of the resolutions that one of my classmates who was in the grade ahead of me had up that eventually got passed. Initially, it failed. It failed on a voice vote, and I stood up from my chair. I was one of the delegates, and I said, I call for a division. And the president didn't know what I was talking about, of course. He was just kind of looking around. And the parliamentarian who sits up there, with the president, the vice president, all those people, kind of like leans over and whispers to him, and he's like, "Oh, we have a call for division," which meant that instead of the voice vote, everybody had to be stood and manually counted. And we still lost after that happened. But at a session that came after that, we read a letter from our nursing director on the stage, not on the stage, like from the floor. We wrote a letter that she thought would address some of the misperceptions of what the people were talking about, why they were voting against it, and then it immediately passed after that. There was just some fundamental way we were not communicating that time around to get our point across, and the argument that kept getting brought against us, which we all argued very eloquently against, I think, from the floor, was that our resolution to support articulation programs to advance people's nursing educations from CNA or LPN to RN, and get people money to do that, and grant money, and work with community colleges, and it was like a resolution in support of that model that we use here in Connecticut that's worked out so very well for us, and it's made money available and time available, and consortium agreements with all the community colleges and all this great stuff that they're doing. And so it eventually passed after this letter from the director of our school, and I can't for the life of me remember what it said, but she was pretty brilliant. I was pretty fortunate to get to be around her that year. Her name is Linda Perfetto, by the way, and she does some state nursing state level nursing education, big time kind of thing right now. I kind of lost track of everybody from school after I graduated, but. So the second resolution the next time was written by myself and Jennifer Christopher, who was one of my classmates and a lot of fun to be around. And it was a resolution on... what was our resolution about, Jen? Huh. I know we wrote it. It was about something. Here, I'll figure this out. Oh, it was about, I think it was in support of nursing preceptorships, I think. Oh wait, no, let me back up a step. So, in the previous resolution about supporting education articulation systems, a lot of the nurses who were the other delegates misunderstood the high-level writing that resolution was written in, and mistook it to mean that the resolution was in support of forcing people to advance their education, compelling LPNs to get an RN, or compelling associate's degrees RNs to get bachelor's degrees RNs. And what they objected to is that they thought the language of it meant that we were supporting requiring nurses to do that, and it wasn't at all. It was in support of putting systems in place to support people who want to do that, but it was too abstract for them. They didn't get it, and we tried to explain it to them, and it didn't work. It took our nursing educators straight it out for everybody. Oh yeah, but the next one was about, I'm pretty sure it was about nursing preceptorships, and that one was written by myself and Jennifer Christopher. And that one got passed, I think, without any difficulty. I think we did pretty good on that. I think it required a revision and a revote or something. But you know, like, you know, we were prepared for that. You know, like, we knew how the system worked because we'd been there last year. And just the politics involved are amazing. Like, for the elections and stuff, I didn't get involved in any of that stuff. But there's like dirty tricks, there's intrigue, there's I mean, it's pretty exciting. Like, there's some pretty passionate people there, and they sort of, you know, behave in a way that you expect passionate people to behave in. So it's kind of nice to be around. As long as I'm not embroiled in it, you know, I'm not gonna throw myself in there. You know, I'll spectate. I'll go to a couple of caucuses or whatever, but you can count me right out of all of that crazy business. But definitely fun to check out. I recommend it if you're going to nursing school. NSNA it's called, and if you don't have an SNA in your school, just start one. It's fine. So yeah, I forgot where I was going with that. I've kind of left the wooded areas, and I'm in some kind of town now. You guys know what town this is. I don't gotta kid you. I'll do my usual loop. And that guy's turning. Okay. Well, you know, I don't think I can come up with anything else to talk about. I think I covered most of the bases. So tune in next time when I will be driving around somewhere else.